This is the Pro Audio Suite podcast. Quick Bites.
Welcome to another Pro Audio Suite Quick Bite. This week we're talking about noise reduction. Next week we'll do a full shootout, but we're just going to talk about one of the noise reduction options. And it comes out of Sweden. It's called Brusfri. And George, you've been playing around with Brusfri.
I have. Brusfri is a noise reducer that is trying to, take some wind from the sails of others like Izotope RX and Waves NS1 and things like that. And I've been only playing around with it for a short time, but in at least my initial tests and real world tests of recording actual voiceover tracks and listening to them back, I've been pretty darn impressed with what it can do.
Well, you just played us a bit of room noise before, but we should play it for our listeners, just so they can hear what happens with rumbling of air conditioners and various other artifacts of ambient noise.
So here's a tail end of a sample of a voice, and then the room tone that ensues afterward. Here we go.
We're here to keep you healthy, happy, and loving life for a lifetime.
So that's a pretty nice sample of rumble, right?
Yeah, Totally.
This is, a file that with the right processing thrown onto it could be usable. A producer could take a voice track like this, apply the right high-pass filter and other things and get something usable out of it. But, and I know how to use these tools to get a good result, but usually I'm going to run it through at least 2 or 3 different tools to get the end result. What's pretty cool about Brusfri is they bake in several different processing tools into one, so it has a high pass filter, for example, which is obviously really helpful. I mean, if you're trying to get rid of rumble, having a high pass filter helps. It also lets you adjust the amount or degree of noise reduction you're using, which is pretty standard fare. It also has a high end boost as well, which is kind of interesting. I guess the intention is that if you use a lot of this processing, some of the top end can get attenuated just a little bit. So he gives you a little dial and lets you add back in a little bit of the top end. And then lastly, it's got an attack, a threshold, and a release, which is, again, pretty standard fare, but the graphic design and how the controls are adjusted is very minimalistic, yet at the same time easy to adjust. So what you do is you just have it listen to the noise in the file. You literally play back some of the noise. You click on the giant ear button. It learns the noise profile. And that's going to be familiar to people that use the noise reduction like in Audacity. And then once it's created that noise profile, it's ready to go. So here's what it sounds like applied to that same audio sample. I'm going to play it from right here. Here's rumble and then some voice.
Life gives you a whole lot to live for. And with quantum healthcare.
Okay, so there's rumble with voice. And then here it is now with the Brusfri processing added on.
Life gives you a whole lot to live for. And with quantum healthcare.
Pretty dramatic difference, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, massive. So before the room tone, if I measured the room tone in that room of that noise, it was peaking around minus 37. After Brusfri added on, that same room tone measures at minus 75.
Wow.
And that's one thing I like about this tool is they made it musical. And by musical, I mean they didn't make it like a hardcore gate. It doesn't take away all the room tone. It leaves like enough room tone in there for you to go, okay, there's something there, but it leaves a little bit behind so that, but it takes out just enough. And you can determine to remove more or less by adjusting what they call the edge setting. More edge removes more room tone. So pretty impressive, right? I mean, and it's a $60 plugin for in the US. That's the US pricing.
Wow. I mean, I kind of see this as, and it'd be worth a test, but whenever you're away in a hotel, building a pillow fort or using a porta booth or, chaotic eyeball, hoo-ha.
Right.
Which obviously has its issues as well because you end up with that boxiness. But if this does what it appears to do, and looking at some of the videos on the website, It also seems to get rid of reflections as well, which means you could
it turns them down a bit.
Yeah, well, you could set yourself up in a hotel room with minimal sort of treatment around you, which gives you the openness of the microphone without all the artifacts of the room.
Well, yeah,
this could be great.
That's the dream.
But does it take out the artifacts of the room? It's not a de-reverberation, is it?
Not technically, no. What it's doing technically is applying a whole bunch of downward expanders, what they call several frequency trimmed expanders built on an intelligent noise suppressor. So some of that, the room reverb tail will get lost in those expanders. So here's a sample of a hand clap. This is from their own demo video. At the very end of the video, they record a hand clap with the iPhone. They have an iPhone version of this, by the way, for $15 US. And then they apply that tool. And you'll see, yes, that you can still hear that there's a room, but it definitely takes away a good part of the reverb tail. Listen to this. Oh, sorry, wrong fader. Let's bring up the right one. Learning curve using my Rodecaster here. Here we go. So, yes, there is still a reverb tail. It's not taking away all the reverb.
So it seems to be getting the tail, but it's not really getting those early reflections, is it? So if you were in a hotel room, say, you'd still have to do some padding to keep those early reflections down. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something that's probably not quite going to cut it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not the miracle device that allows us to ignore acoustics. Not quite there yet.
Or learning to play the trumpet.
Give a man a new toy and look what happens.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet, but for what it is, it's a pretty impressive tool. The fact that it has an iPhone version could just let you get away with a little bit better sounding auditions when you're on the road with your iPhone. That's pretty fun.
So there are times when it's really helpful to use some processing before your noise reduction. Like I know Robert, for example, uses a downward expander in some cases before he uses his noise reduction. So he gets rid of all those sort of overall artifacts and then uses the noise reduction to get into that more specific sort of frequency stuff. So you could sort of still work around a bit that way too, couldn't you?
Yeah, so this one tool is trying to make all that user-friendly. Bake it into one tool and do as many of those different steps that you would normally have done manually automatically. And then also a $15 plugin for your iPhone. That's pretty amazing. I mean, I do not want to downplay what, Izotope RX and Waves have developed. I mean, they have incredible tools, but you have to buy a whole suite of plugins to get that one thing. And these guys are selling all their stuff a la carte.
Well, I think that's the thing, probably, and we'll talk about this more in the shootout next time, but I mean, with the RX suite, you're also getting Depop, D-Click, all the other stuff that comes in terms of noise reduction, not just ambient noise. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive. As if you were a voiceover artist and you weren't worried about the rest, you just wanted to sort of clean up what you were sending someone. That's a pretty unbeatable price point, isn't it?
Well, I reckon it's fantastic. I mean, you would put that on your laptop when you're away and would save a lot of grief. I mean, you still set yourself up with a few pillows or blankets or whatever, but you're not sticking yourself inside a boxy box to record, to try and keep the sound out.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, one of the biggest problems we have working from the road is we're trying to keep out the noise. So we go inside a closet and now we're in a box. So now we created a new acoustical problem.
Yeah.
Getting low noise and good acoustics often are at odds with each other. So now we can just focus on getting rid of the early reflections, setting up a few pillows in the room, just killing off those bounces off the walls and the desks. And then we can dial back that room tone to a pretty acceptable level, but in such a way that there's very minimal artifacting. I mean, it's very hard to tell that something has been done to the file, unless you've heard the original version.
The real test of noise reduction comes once you've processed the voiceover ready to export. I mean, once you start compressing and EQing, see how much of it actually rears up its ugly head.
It would be a good test for that, to actually send it to Robert or Robbo and pretend it's a session. So, you would record and then see what you can do with it at the other end when it comes to compressing it and whatever else you're going to do to that file.
Does it have that button where you can listen to what you're actually taking out? I love that button.
You know what? That's a darn good question, and it appears that it does not have a way to monitor the removed sound.
Right.
Which can be very handy when you're setting your settings in RX to be able to monitor the processed file and hear what it's removing. I especially use that with a declicker. Wanting to hear what is actually being removed is helpful. So no, it doesn't have that feature. Good mention.
My kids love that Waves plugin Sibilance. When I put that on, they love to come in and have a listen to just the S's as they go through. For some reason, they think that's hilarious.
Well, these guys, you should just, even if you don't want their plugins, just go to klevgrand.se. That's KLEVGRAND.se. And look at the product videos. They have one for their de-esser, and it is hilarious.
Right. Okay.
It is so, their promotional videos are really entertaining. At least watch them, because the one for the de-esser is fantastic.
Yeah, for our Spanish listeners, perfect.
Yes.
All right. Well, I know what I'm doing when we're done here then.
We're done.
We're done.
Well, there we have it.
We're done. So we'll do the shootout coming up the next week or two.
Get your 6 shooters out, because we're having a shootout next week then.
Yeah. Okay, Sheriff. Let's get out of here.
That was the Pro Audio Suite. If you have any questions or ideas for a show, let us know via our Facebook, the Pro Audio Suite Podcast.